Drop it. Power panel. Cenk, Uygur, John Iadarola. Jordan, you'll be sorry if you missed this show. Okay, that's a new one. That's a new one. Okay, good to have you back on the show, Jordan. It's wonderful to see you. John is also here.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, listen, we got a lot of news. We're gonna make fun. Are we gonna make fun of Josh Hawley? Of course. Okay. Are we going to take on Republicans and Democrats? Do I have to tell you? Do I have to tell you? You know what we're gonna do. All right, we got good news, bad news, ugly news as usual. So I'm gonna get right to it. John, take it away.
Let's start off with the third kind with this video.
My only goal was to ensure the integrity of the vote. My only goal was to ensure the integrity of the vote.
Nailed it. So those are outtakes from Trump's, like against his will response to what had happened on January 6th. You saw that they were taping it to put out a statement where he would condemn the attack. And then after that, spend the next year and a half saying that they were actually awesome patriots and he wishes they had accomplished their goals. But it actually got even more embarrassing than those little excerpts. Take a look at this.
To those who broke the law, you will pay. You do not represent our movement. You do not represent our country. And if you broke the law, you can't say that. I'm not gonna, I already said you will pay. But this election is now over. Congress has certified the results. I don't want to say the election's over. I just want to say Congress has certified the results without saying the election's over, okay? My only goal was to ensure the integrity of the vote. My only goal was to ensure the integrity of the vote.
I love that they got that video. That's almost my favorite thing that the committee has released. It's not the most substantive, but you get sort of his like raw, unfiltered thoughts immediately after January 6th. What was he thinking about at that point? His team had finally successfully convinced him to say something. Remember, because they were afraid that he would be impeached. This was damage control effectively, but even inside of that, he didn't want to condemn the attackers too much. One comment is enough for him. Don't give me a second. And sure, it's been certified, but the election isn't over. And I think that really revealed what his headspace was at this point. What do you think?
So look, blooper reels are a little bit unfair, always, right? And so can you find blooper reels of me? Oh yeah. Okay, and I try to have fun with it, right? And I think that MSNBC still has one of me eating a banana during a break. So that's not the issue. The issue is what do you learn from it, if anything, right? We could have a chuckle. I mean, Josh Hawley running through the building is hilarious. We'll get to that later in the show, right? And that's good just in and of itself. But here there's two very relevant points. One is, hey, I don't think the election's over. So when he put out that statement, it was obviously his advisor saying, look, man, how many people are gonna get killed? Let's go, you gotta do something here. And he's very begrudgingly saying it, but at this point, we all know that because this week, he called the Speaker of the Assembly in Wisconsin to try to overturn the election. This week, in July of 2022. Okay, that's unreal, the guy's a lunatic. All right, but the most important part is he didn't really want to condemn the rioters. So even when he said, if you break the law, there is going to be, you're gonna have to pay for it. He had to clarify, he's like, I don't want to clarify because he doesn't want him to pay for it. Because as we've seen, not just with that video, but with every piece of the testimony, he thought what they were doing was fantastic. In fact, when he was told that the rioters were threatening to kill Mike Pence, he apparently, according to Mark Meadows, said he thinks Mike deserves it.
Jordan.
So I think what they did last night by showing the Hawley clip, was adding a moment of much needed levity in an otherwise kind of dry hearing process. And doing this in the final primetime one, I thought was really smart because it gets people paying attention. The Hawley clip went everywhere, way outside of just people who were watching it. and it brought people's attention back to it, which they really struggled to do over the past couple weeks. And what this clip really did was underscore the point they tried to hammer home last night was he didn't do anything throughout the entire time people were storming the Capitol, smashing windows, beating people up. He could have easily, and they pointed out, within a minute, 2 minutes, been on national TV addressing the nation and telling people to stop, telling people to go home. They walked through the logistics of what that would be, just to walk over to the briefing room and deliver an address to the nation saying to stop it. But they were doing, like Cenk said, exactly what he wanted. So why would he? Instead, he sat there on Twitter in front of a television. So I like this clip a lot, but it really hammers home the point they were trying to make all night in a much more entertaining way.
Yeah, I definitely agree. You do have to mix it up, and it's weird that, I don't know, like the worst statements won't go viral in the same way that Josh Hawley, like road runnering will. It's weird how that works out, but that said, they gave us both. I mean, in this last day, you got the Josh Hawley, and we will definitely play that in a bit. But you also got some scary stuff. You have members of Mike Pence's security detail at that point were calling their loved ones to say goodbye. I mean, they were terrified that this would be their last day. And many people probably saw, members of like the Secret Service was scared too. In fact, why don't we play a bit of that tape?
There was a lot of yelling, a lot of very personal calls over the radio. So it was disturbing. I don't like talking about it, but there were calls to say goodbye to family members, so on and so forth. It was getting, for whatever the reason was on the ground, the VP detail thought that this was about to get very ugly.
And it did, yeah. And the whole time, Trump is just watching it, and hours and hours go by until he finally sends out some tweets. Initially, he sent out, the tweet about Mike having failed everyone, which there's no read of that tweet other than that was one chance. Now it's all on you. It's on the rioters to do this. That alone, he should be locked up over that. But Merrick Garland's got other things to do, I guess. And then he finally does send out the tweets, and he puts out that video, late into the afternoon. And of course, it's incredibly begrudging, and he implies that nothing bad has truly happened. He says to stay peaceful. He doesn't even acknowledge what they've done, let alone call out the individual acts of violence. He doesn't reiterate that they're all supposed to care, for law enforcement, to believe that they're the most important people. Maybe stop trying to kill them with your bare hands. And that's what he was doing as members of the security detail who are trained, they're ready to give their lives, they're preparing to give their lives because of his actions and his inaction.
Yeah, I think that that tweet is devastating when he finds out that Mike Pence's life is in danger, and he pours fuel on the fire and says basically go get him. And you can, in several different instances, both last night and in earlier hearings, they would show the rioters' reactions to Trump's tweets. So, when he tweeted against Pence, they get super mad at Pence. When he says it's time to go home, we'll show that to you in a minute. They say, oh, okay, I guess it's time to go home, right? And so they're clearly listening to Donald Trump's directions. They're waiting for Donald Trump's directions. They're Trump's mob. And he's perfectly aware of that for 3 hours and 7 minutes. And so as people are like, no, you've got to call in more reinforcements. People's lives are on the line. His reaction is, they deserve it. And he also told Kevin McCarthy when he was on the phone with him, he said, I guess the rioters care more about the stolen election than you do, Kevin. In other words, hey, listen, if you don't fight hard enough for me, maybe my mob kills you too. Look, guys, if you're still a Trump supporter after all this, whatever you think you are, you're not in favor of democracy or this country. There is no definition of democracy or a republic where the leader gets to murder his own vice president or have a mob murder his vice president and cheer it on. That is in no way related to a democracy. You're rooting for a dictator and someone who would destroy the idea of America. But look, self-delusion is a hell of a drug. and that's what about at least 30% of the country is still on.
And it's really horrifying to think that he's, on the precipice of running again. He seems like he's almost guaranteed to announce soon that he's running again. It gets him back in the spotlight. He seems to think this will help him in his legal battles. I like the Garland thing is infuriating. How do you look at this and even just in totality, think about everything this guy did and not think about intervening? I don't buy the avoidance of appearing political during an election or near an election. I just think there's more important things than that. People are going to believe whatever they want. If you're worried about appearing partisan, it doesn't matter. It's not something that should guide you in this decision. And we saw how throughout all of these hearings, just how close we were to things being much, much worse. It's a lot of like really lucky things and just perfectly timed things that helped avoid this getting much more violent. Who's to say the next one? And I do think this is just a trial balloon, but who's to say like the next one is probably guaranteed to be much more violent? And I think people really need to think about that. And also, I think there's a moral imperative as a result to be much more involved and much more engaged in elections, including this midterm, because this is where they're going to make great strides in trying to rebuild the Republican majority in Congress.
100%, yeah. Yeah, I think that there are a couple reasonable explanations for why Merrick Garland is doing what he's doing. And certainly, as you said, there are concerns, generally anonymous, about appearing too political, or concerns about what Trump supporters would do if there were to be charges, if they were to go through this whole process and everything. And I get that. That's definitely something that you should be preparing for. He has millions of followers who are absolutely out of their mind, and they are just like, they're thirsting for political violence. That is a concern. I would argue him being president of the United States for 4 more years probably could result in more violence. But I also wonder about, like, we know that the Dems are willing to take great risks if they think it will benefit them politically. Hillary Clinton thought that Trump would be easy to beat, and so we know how that went. You've said that there's only one Republican that Biden would have a chance of winning, which would be Trump. Is it possible that that's just what they're thinking, and they think, sure, it would be risky to let him run again, and if he won, it would be devastating, but it would be easier to beat him than if DeSantis stepped up and ran, or some other Republican? Is it possible that they're going a bit hands off because they think this is the only way Biden can win a second term, is by letting him run?
So that I have a definitive answer to that, and that is both. So would the Democrats make a political calculation like that? Are they callous enough? Would they play with dice with democracy? Yes, definitely. So as horrible as the Trump clan and cult is rooting on fascism, well, I mean, that is a hell of a political calculation by Democratic leadership to say, well, we've got slightly better odds of retaining power if it's Trump. So let's gamble that fascists win and destroy America. Well, would I put it past Democratic leadership? Hell no. Are they rooting for that? Probably. Okay, but that is not the only reason why they're not prosecuting. People like Joe Biden and Merrick Garland are constitutionally weak. They've been rewarded by the donor class through all of their promotions for being weak. So when donors see a strong Republican, they pour in millions of dollars. Go get him, Tiger. Make sure I get his maximum tax cuts. When donors see a weak Democrat, they're like, let's make him leader. Okay, so that the other side will be totally impotent. And then when they see media that takes someone who's impotent and pretends that he's a tiger, right? They're like, good, now let's fund that. So that we've got this whole kabuki theater going on. So do I want Trump to be the Republican nominee, even though that would mean the Democrats have a slightly better chance of winning? Hell no, under no circumstances. Are you nuts? And people are like, oh, DeSantis is just as bad or maybe worse. No, you don't know that. DeSantis has never threatened to murder one of his own officials in Florida. Okay, DeSantis never did any of the lunatic things that Trump has done. DeSantis is a horrible right winger. We've had a lot of horrible right wingers in this country. We've only had one guy try to destroy democracy. That's Donald Trump. So no, no one should ever gamble with that. And to talk about how stupid Merrick Garland is, or how pathetically weak he is, he's holding. Well, Trump's gonna announce any day now. And once he announces, if Merrick Garland announces that he's prosecuting him right after that, it looks way more political. Jesus, man. They just have no spine and no brain. Like Garland's been a judge this whole time, but why was he picked by Obama and then Biden? Because he's pathetically weak. That weak people pick other weak people, and the donors pick weak Democrats in the first place. That's how all of politics in America is.
Yeah.
So no, look, guys, look. If there was a strong Democrat, it's beating Trump, beating other Republicans are so easy, but they never ever let us do it, right? So how would you do it with Trump? I would keep asking him during the presidential run, if you get another chance, or will you try to murder your new vice president? Like whoever it is, let's say he picks Kristi Noem or whoever. I mean, last time you tried to get Mike Pence murdered, we know for a fact that you were told that he might be killed and you thought he deserved it. What would make you want to murder Kristi Noem, right? But do you think Biden is gonna ask that question? Anyone related to Biden is gonna ask that question? Biden's more likely to make out with Trump than to ask that question. But literally, like, I know it's absurd, he's not gonna make out with Trump. That's more likely than him saying, hey, would you murder your next vice president? Because Biden is pathetic. There's no way he would ever do a forceful challenge of a Republican. I mean, he ran against Trump already. He barely won by 43,000 votes in 3 states. Otherwise, he loses the Electoral College. And the whole campaign, what did he do? The one time, we even made a shirt out of it, because for half a second, he lost his temper. That's probably more because he's getting old than he's got a fighting spirit. But during the debate, he said, "What? Are you ever gonna shut up, man?" Or what, that shut up line. That's the only time he ever really forcefully criticized Trump. And Trump is nearly demonic. And even then, Biden couldn't. He gave McConnell a rabid right winger on the federal bench, or he wanted to. And then McConnell was surprised. He's like, I guess it's a gesture of friendship. Because he loves Republicans. He loves them. If the Democrats continue with Biden into the next election, they should, everybody, not just Democratic leadership, not just every Democratic official in the country, but Democratic voters too. You should all have your head examined if you let this clown run again.
Yeah, I don't understand the strategy that Democrats are taking now to try to lift up fringe Republicans. And it goes back to what they did in 2016. They thought Trump would be an easy win and it backfired. I really don't think this is the time that they should be experimenting with a ploy like this when people's lives are on the line. When you really need to expand a Senate majority to try to codify Roe. When you need to finally, maybe they can resume talking about a public option again, let alone Medicare for all. When you need to address things like inflation and gas prices and climate change, all of these systemic existential issues that are creating a sense of dread in millions of Americans. This despair that's guiding a lot of them also fuels a lot of the negative polling for Biden's approval. And right now is not the time they should be toying with this lifting up of fringe Republicans in hopes it would be an easy defeat in November. There's no guarantee of that. And what they could ultimately end up doing is wasting money they could spend on ground game, get out the vote efforts, things to lift up the people they've endorsed and the people they're running in hopes of actually winning. And I just don't understand this strategy because people are fed up with Democrats. People's material issues are really what guides them. And right now, when people can't afford things, when the cost of living is getting higher because of corporate greed and that driving inflation, and when you haven't done anything to run on, why would they go out and vote for you? And where's the energy behind them to get out and get other people out to vote for you? So it seems like a doom strategy that could end up making things worse.
Yeah, super last things here. Yeah, Democrats are total morons, of course. They've spent, to Jordan's point, they've spent millions upon millions, tens of millions, helping extreme right wingers in different races, like Senate races, because they think it'll be easier to run against them. Does it look easy? Hey, why don't you pick strong candidates? Then it'll be easier to beat Republicans. But these look, they're hopeless losers. You have to get rid of every loser in Democratic leadership. Just yesterday, Nancy Pelosi was talking about the contraception bill, and she's like, "I hope my Republican friends vote for it." Oh my God, oh my God. Okay, but honestly, everybody in DC, every Democrat in DC, including a lot of progressive organizations, and every reporter in DC is just as nuts as Trump. They look at Biden and they think no one should criticize him. He's doing great. He's polling at 27% in Iowa. 27%. And they think it's the most offensive thing to criticize him. Are you guys nuts? Do you live on this same planet? And all of them say uniformly he went too far left. And they can't name one policy where he went left at all. No, they live in a deranged alternate reality. It's just a different deranged alternate reality than Trump supporters, which brings me finally to the video that I promised you earlier. Guys, it's really important does Trump partly control the crowd? If he didn't know anything about the crowd and the crowd's not listening to him, he could say, rightfully so, well, look, man, they're ostensibly on my side. They got the Trump flags, but I didn't tell them to do that, and they're not listening to me. So I want to play you video 4 to give you a sense of how intently the crowd was taking directions from Donald Trump. This is finally when Trump does that video and says, "Go home."
I'm here delivering the president's message. But you don't ask everybody to go home. That's our order.
He says go home.
Yeah, he said to go home.
Yeah, he says to go attack the Capitol, they go attack the Capitol. He says Mike Pence could be a problem. I'm really upset about Mike Pence. They chant hang Mike Pence. And then he says go home, and they go home. Did he control that crowd? Definitely.
Yeah.
All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, we've got more, including the infamous, now wonderfully, it's an instant classic, as ESPN would say, the infamous Josh Hawley running through the halls tape. We'll be right back. All right, back on TYT, Cenk, John, and Jordan with you guys, but not just us, but Peter Kozak, there's no way I said it right, Shannon Reynolds, Jonathan Lee, Appleseed, Patrick Belay, Ismonassis, Jessica Kay, all those wonderful American patriots and heroes just became part of the Young Turks by hitting the join button below. We appreciate it. You guys make us stronger. You allow us to get this message out and drive for positive change in the world like we're trying to do with the minimum wage ballot issue. We love you guys. Hit the join button below or tyt.com/join. John.
Nice. We're gonna go from those American patriots to another American patriot in this video.
Senator Josh Hawley also had to flee. Earlier that afternoon, before the joint session started, he walked across the east front of the Capitol. As you can see in this photo, he raised his fist in solidarity with the protesters already amassing at the security gates. We spoke with a Capitol police officer who was out there at the time. She told us that Senator Hawley's gesture riled up the crowd. Later that day, Senator Hawley fled after those protesters he helped to rile up stormed the Capitol. See for yourself.
That is Josh Hawley just trying to keep up with the crowd as he flees the inevitable, unavoidable consequence of supporting the increase of political violence in America. It's, oh no, it's coming for you. You could have never seen this coming. So there he was being a big alpha, a big brave guy running away. And as soon as that video came out, around the country, around the world, everybody had a nice hearty chuckle about it. It turns out though, it wasn't just us watching outside of the Capitol. Inside the Capitol, they found it pretty funny as well. Take a look. It's subjectively funny, and we need that in America in 2022. Now, it's not, stripped of context funny. He's terrified for his life, and he should be terrified for his life. A mob of murderous, insane people are storming the building. What makes it funny, of course, is the fist and all the comments afterward. He's a tough guy, he's on their side. He's a regular. Oh God, no! And look. He doesn't seem to care about this. We're gonna get to his response earlier today. Being mocked across the internet, he's at least implying that it hasn't really affected him, but I don't know. Cenk was calling this an instant classic in our last segment, and I really hope that this sticks to him as much as like the photo of Ted Cruz phone banking sticks to Ted Cruz. There's certain things like that that they never should get out of your brain.
Yeah, so Jamie Raskin was asked about this, and they said, well, it's CNN, by the way, not Fox News. I said, is it fair to Josh Hawley to have run this tape? Was it really necessary? The press is hilarious. Like, they're the only ones who defend lying politicians. You're supposed to challenge them. The only time that they challenge a politician is they're asking Representative Raskin, were you being too mean to Senator Hawley? And I love Raskin's response. He was something to the effect of, I do it every time. And so, attaboy, there's a progressive who's strong. And there's a good reason, substantive reason to do it, which is that, look, to me, there's two layers to it. I know that the Democrats only intended one layer, okay, at most. The first layer is almost all politicians are liars. It's all optics, okay? So the story that I love the most is Fred Thompson. He was a literal actor, and then he ran for Senate in Tennessee as a Republican and won. And he had this gimmick. He had this red pickup truck that he would do for campaign stops. And all the press covered like, Fred Thompson, when he goes back to Tennessee, he might be a Hollywood actor, but he gets in that red pickup truck. Then I read a story afterwards that it turns out, and of course it was from a progressive outlet, Fred Thompson would drive a limo to the red pickup truck, use it on the campaign stops, and then drive a limo back to his house. Of course, he wouldn't drive it. Somebody else would drive him in the limo. Why did the press go along with the optics of the red pickup truck? Why didn't they all write, this guy's an obvious goddamn liar driving to the pickup truck in a limo? Isn't that an interesting story? Of course, that's a funny story. It's an interesting story. Makes for a good headline. Nope. We love lying politicians. We're gonna protect them at all costs, right? So that's why they never tell you what's behind the curtain. All they ever show you is Josh Hawley being like, so strong, right? And then they never show you in private, right? But that's what a politician is, 98% of them. They're loser servants of the donor class. I mean, they're all constitutionally weak, not just the Democrats, because look at what Trump did to the Republicans. He created a beta bus filled with betas of like, Trump, I'll do anything for you. Are your boots clean enough? Are they clean enough? Why? Because they were already trained by the donors. I give you money, and then you do as you're told, bitch. And then the politicians are like, yes, sir, absolutely, sir. Josh Hawley's pretending to be a populist. You think he doesn't lick his donors' boots? Of course he does. That's why he's like, this in public and in private. Okay, now that's the layer the Democrats did not intend, because that also implicates them. The layer I think in a good day they did intend is that, so you guys all pretend to be MAGA, you all pretend to be with the Trump supporters in public, and right now you're saying, Trump didn't do anything wrong. These rioters didn't do anything wrong. They were just tourists, man. They're just stopping by. And you guys, they were gonna go shopping, and now they're patriots, right? But what did you actually think of them? You were so scared, you ran for your life.
Yeah.
That's the real Josh Hawley.
Yeah, he's a total fraud. I've talked a lot elsewhere about how he's just the worst example of a hollow populist who can speak to the rhetoric but does nothing to follow through on it. And unfortunately, he's duped a lot of people, including some on the left, into thinking, this guy understands class issues. No, he is a fraud through and through. Also, got to remind you, He wrote a book about how we have like a masculinity problem in this country.
He did.
And he's like a big, like, we need to increase our masculinity in America guy. So that another layer to this that I found really hilarious, because for people in that school of thought, and I'm not saying I agree with this, but they think that, traits like fear and cowardice are inherently feminine values, where you need to exhibit, courage and strength and bravery and fearlessness and things that just generally are not healthy to be taken on unilaterally without any sort of balance. And here you have a perfect example of who he actually is. So he's just running one grift after another, whether it's his populism, whether it's his masculinity BS. The guy is just a total fraud, and this was just a perfect example of that. One thing though, it had nothing to do with what they were talking about last night. Like the whole focus last night was Trump's inaction, and then all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, hey, by the way, check out this clip." And I think that was just to take a swipe at him because he was selling merch of that fist bump even into this year. I think he tried to sell it. He posted a link today, but I think it was really just kind of a middle finger to him because he was one of the worst offenders in trying to hype this up.
Yeah, I would honestly love to see a little mashup of, like, you do the surveillance shot of all of them like cowering when the door is about to be breached, and you identify an individual, and then you show what he has said about the riot ever since. And then you go to the next, because they're all strong as soon as they're not worried that they're going to be torn limb from limb. I'm going to get ready to go ahead to graphic 2 because I just want to mention one other thing. I mentioned this on the damage report, but I think it bugs me so much. Sure, let's go to that. So he's been revealed to be an absolute hypocrite, obviously. He was terrified of being killed. He's been revealed, tough, strong guy. Oh God, no. Little kissy face. I've been outed as a liar and a hypocrite. And he gets to just do a kissy face and then move on. And I don't know, maybe this is him attempting to post through it. Maybe this is him realizing that the right isn't gonna care at all, I don't know. But it makes me think about when AOC was talking about her fears from January 6th, when she was terrified that she was gonna be murdered or raped by these insane people who have been trained by Fox News on a daily basis for literally years to hate and fear her while at the same time lusting after her. And you see that in all of their commentators on the right. When she talked about that, the entire right-wing media sphere went insane. How dare she lie, making herself a victim, pretending that she was scared. They mock her to this day over that. Nancy Mace was doing that too. But for Josh Hawley, he's literally on tape running for his life, and he gets to just put it up an emoji, and then he goes back to being a good, strong conservative. The double standard there is amazing.
Yeah, I'm gonna give the last word to the members here. Madam Rochelle says, if I ever need an exercise regimen, I just imagine Josh Hawley running. If he can do it, so can I. Okay, by the way, tyt.com/join to become a member, be part of the show, or hit the join button below on YouTube. I am Sock Rights, and this is Liz Cheney's shooting someone in the face moment. Okay. It's so true, right? And I realized even before I read that comment, but I love doing the show with the members. Oh, I know why they did that thing to Josh Hawley. And Liz Cheney earlier said in last night, Kevin McCarthy was scared, right? And that jumped out at me because Democrats would never say that, right? And I was like, Liz Cheney and progressive Jamie Raskin. No wonder the committee is strong, right? If it was like Pelosi and Biden running it, the entire time they'd be like, I'm so sorry, Donald Trump, that we have to do this. Right? So the January 6th hearings has been wonderfully strong, including in releasing this, whether it was pertinent to last night or not. And I'll leave you with this because we can't show it because of copyright reasons. But you should spend a good 30 minutes watching Josh Hawley in that clip with different songs put to it. Okay. Chariots of Fire was the immediate, one that jumped out at everybody. But there's a lot of other songs.
I saw Kate Bush running up that hill.
Yeah,
that was good. I think he's gonna get out of that dream.
Yeah, Rocky. Dun 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 dun. I can't. Don't make me sing it.
Wouldn't it be amazing though if, like, you know how like Mighty Ducks will come out and then kids get into hockey, or Karate Kid comes out and kids want to do martial arts? What if this actually leads to people getting into more cardio? Like he should actually license this, make some money off an app, a coup to 5K over the course of a couple of weeks. It gets you in shape. I think that would be a good thing for America.
I like it. I'm going to adopt it from now on. I'm going to tell my wife when I'm going out for a jog. I'm just going out for a quick Hawley. I'll be right back.
Don't get mad at us, Senator. We're just joshing around. Oh God,
by the way, I don't give a damn if you get mad at us. I'm at it.
Yeah, what is he gonna do? Come at us, we raise one fist, you cowards. Oh God.
Yeah.
Anyway,
what's he gonna do? Run away from us?
Oh, I don't know. I almost feel a little bit bad just because he probably, like everyone else, has laughed at Ted Cruz this whole time, and now he's Ted Cruz.
That's awesome. Are you kidding me? I love it. They're all Ted Cruz. They're all
anyway, with that said, why don't we go to a little bit of positive news, starting with this.
We may have lost a battle here today, but we're not going to lose this war. I stand with Trump and the Constitution, and I will never back off that, ever.
He won't back off. He might fall apart. He looks like he's rotting right now. But anyway, he says he's lost a battle, but not the war. I can't speak to the war. We'll have to stay tuned. Let's focus today on the fact that Steve Bannon did lose that battle, and he is now officially guilty of a crime again. We'll see if he gets another pardon, but for right now, he was found guilty earlier today of 2 counts of contempt of Congress for failing to comply with a subpoena issued by the January 6th Select Committee investigating the attack. So he had been called to come in, he refused to do so. I think understandably believing that they wouldn't do anything about it. In some cases, subpoenas being defied have not led to these sorts of indictments. But no, he's now been found guilty. The trial lasted a week. It actually only featured 2 witnesses in the end, and it tested a rarely used criminal statute meant to ensure that people comply with congressional subpoenas. Earlier this month, as he prepared for the trial, Bannon said that he was gonna go medieval on his enemies, but most of his legal arguments were rejected by the trial judge, and he ended up calling no witnesses whatsoever. His argument overall was just that he was following orders and Trump something privilege. And he believed that would work. It didn't. Maybe upon appeal it will. We'll have to stay tuned to find out. But I love this description of when it was actually announced. As he waited for the verdict, Bannon did not show much emotion, fiddling with a black mask on the defense table. His hand went still as guilty was read twice. After the judge dismissed the jury and left the courtroom, Bannon lingered, speaking to his attorneys seemingly lightheartedly before walking into the hallway. I just love the idea that he doesn't want to appear nervous, but he's nervous. His hands are moving, and then it stops. Oh no, I've been found guilty. And this time my buddy isn't president to give me a pardon just yet. Stay tuned, October 21st, the actual sentencing, and we'll get into what sort of time he might be facing. But what do you all think about Steve Bannon, guilty man?
Yeah, I want to come back to his earlier pardon in a second, but there's so many great and funny parts to this. He thanked the jury at one point for convicting him. Well, you know what? It's the first time ever that I agree with Steve Bannon. I'd also like to thank the jury for convicting him. So don't get too excited. It's 30 days. Like that's the minimum. They should, okay. After
maximum of 1 year.
Yeah.
And a fine. He could owe up to $100,000 that he will ask Trump fans to give to him, and they will readily provide to this con man. Yeah,
that'll lead back into the pardon in a second, the first one. But yeah, I mean, obviously throw the book at him and then subpoena him again. And if he doesn't respond, do this again and again and again, however long it takes. Here's a sentence that has never been spoken to Steve Bannon. Oh, you clean up well.
Oh my God.
Okay, because you'll hear that from time to time for folks, right? Even after Steve Bannon cleans up, they're like, no, that didn't work. That's weird. Okay, and then he says, I'm gonna go medieval on them, and doesn't present any witnesses. Where's the medieval part? And he's like, well, I mean, I did it. Kind of guilty. Okay, if that's your definition of medieval, I'll take it. So, which leads to the core hypocrisy here. When things are not in a court of law where they are held legally accountable, these guys are all tough guys. They're Josh Hawley with the fist raised, right? When it comes to their words mattering and having legal consequences, all of a sudden they're pudding soft. And by the way, that includes Trump. Like Trump is part of the reason was desperate not to lose and he's desperate to rerun for election is because he's so worried about being prosecuted criminally. I don't know if Trump's gotten the memo yet. The other side is Democrats. They never do anything. It took them a year and a half to get Steve Bannon in jail for 30 days for telling him to F off for a congressional subpoena. I like what the prosecutor did. She made it personal to the jury. She said, you guys, if you live in DC, and they do obviously, you get parking tickets, right? And you know what happens if you don't pay your parking ticket? People don't just go, don't worry about it. No, there are consequences, right? Yeah. So this is a congressional subpoena. It's not optional. You can't just go, forget about it. Okay, no, this is the consequences. And the jury easily agreed.
Yeah.
Jordan.
Yeah, I think it is a good reminder to everybody in Trump's inner circle that nobody is above the law. And that's an important point that I think we all agree on, at least we should strive for. But I really, what is with him and this, like that whole part of like Trump's world, like Seb Gorka's really into this, but with like really antiquated references. Like I'm still hung up on the, like, I'm gonna go medieval thing. Like what is that? Like, Your Honor, I'm about to go sicko mode in this court. So please listen to what I have to say. Like and then doing nothing and follow through. It shows kind of how hollow this is. Like he was holed up in a castle, I think in Europe for a little bit to try to develop some group of men, and Gorka took some like lifetime pledge to some weird Knights Templar offshoot and wherever he came from. I don't know what it is about them like latching on to this antiquated old world European cultural heritage stuff. There's a white nationalist offshoot from it, but I'm so mystified by all of it, but they seem to really love it and think it somehow holds power here.
Yeah, I actually have an answer for that. It's Duginism. It's this insane Russian philosopher, and who, by the way, believes in fascism, dictatorships, despises democracy, and he literally wants to go medieval, as in back to the medieval ages. And you think like, no, he doesn't mean it literally. No. He says in his writings, no, I mean it quite literally, that progress is a bad thing. Technology has been bad. We have to go backwards about 800 years. And the world's dumbest people like Steve Bannon and Tucker Carlson make significant references to Dugin and are fans of Dugin. That's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs.
Yeah.
I haven't read about Serb Gorka, but I'd be surprised if Gorka wasn't another one of these fools. But of course, anytime given an opportunity, look, it's always the cowards and that bully others when they have the power, right? When Trump was in charge, these guys were the biggest tough guys you've ever seen. Now that he's not in charge, he's I'm gonna go medieval. Well, who's stopping you? Congress wants you to testify. Come in and testify. Trump says the same thing. Well, how come they're not talking about the stolen election? One, because it wasn't stolen. Two, they did talk about it. They talked about the 60 cases you lost and how you had no evidence. Three, you know who could testify on your behalf? You. So why don't you step on up, Donald Trump, Steve Bannon? Otherwise, here's a tall glass of shut up juice. Okay, or too strong coffee, either way. All right, check it out. But I want to go back to the pardon, because Bannon got a pardon from Trump before he's leaving office. Now remember, Trump did not give a pardon to Rudy Giuliani, Mo Brooks, and other congressmen that asked for pardons. His own lawyer, John Eastman, they're like, "Oh, we are all criminals who were trying to do a coup. Can you give us a pardon before you leave?" And he's like, "No," because he thought that was too speculative. Okay. Bannon had ripped off Trump supporters and pretended he was going to build a private wall and instead laughed about it on a yacht that they purchased with the money. His co-defendants are in jail now. And Trump's like, oh, you get a pardon. You know why? Because he knows that Bannon did it. There was no question, Bannon was guilty, and he had run the same scam that Trump runs, ripping off his own supporters.
Yep.
So that's why Trump was like, no. Of everyone, Bannon's definitely getting a pardon. Okay, and they're lifelong criminals. So this is just the beginning of Bannon getting caught, and even Fox News agrees. Jonathan Turnley, their legal analyst, was like, yeah, he didn't even present a case. It was embarrassing.
It was. Well, we're gonna have more coming up after this.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk, John Jordan, and Rita Akins, and Chris Greenwade. So you guys are awesome. Thank you for becoming members. John.
Thank you. In fact, for your membership, we will give you this.
We have OnlyFans, and then we have like the sex work industry, and then we have like actors. Is there a difference between these industries, or are we all fundamentally selling our body in some way?
Honestly, I think that selling your body, like if we're going by that definition, being in the army is worse than being on OnlyFans.
Wow.
You're selling your body to the government.
Now, some might find what Mia Khalifa there said to be controversial, but the numbers actually don't lie. It looks like more and more young Americans are actually on her side of this issue, and we're gonna show you those stats. Now, if you're not familiar with Mia Khalifa, she's a former adult film star, now an OnlyFans model, and she did receive pushback for what she said, implying that being a part of the army is in fact worse. And she clarified, saying, to everyone up in arms about my statement that being in the military is worse than being on OnlyFans because you're selling your body to the government, we're both serving this nation. What do you think they sent for morale back in the day? More troops or Marilyn Monroe in a skirt?
Damn.
I like that. I like that. That was good. She goes on to say that the beautiful part about OnlyFans is that you don't have to take your clothes off in the military. You do, however, have to go destabilize a country and die in the name of crude oil if the president is in the mood that week. And so I don't know Mia Khalifa, but she woke up this week and chose violence when it came to her political commentary. Where's the lie? Where is she wrong about literally any of this? But to be fair though, while she is saying it's worse in these ways to be a part of the military, she's also not saying that the path of OnlyFans is right for everyone. She says it's so dangerous to simply say sex work is empowering, because I would never say that to an 18-year-old whose digital footprint hasn't been tainted by mistakes yet. Now, she, relatively early on in her career, was very controversial for some of the videos she was in, and there's obviously a lot of racism tied up in adult movies and all that. She has been controversial for a long time. She's received tons of racist and even violent reactions ever since then. So she understands how that stuff can follow you and crazy people hound you for literally years. But she does say sex work can be empowering to people who have found their way into the industry under less ideal circumstances. It can be an extremely empowering way to take your power and bodily autonomy back, but it's never something I would recommend as a plan A. But let's get to the whole point of this. She's saying that it's worse to do that, to go into the military, to sell your body in this way to the government. Turns out not a lot of people want to do it anymore. The Army has met about only 40% of its enlisted recruiting mission for the current year, with just over 3 months left in the fiscal year. The final quarter, the summer, is typically when the services recruit the most candidates following high school graduation, because the military tries to snap people up right then. They're having a harder and harder time meeting their recruiting goals. And isn't that just a shame?
Yeah, it might have been because Trump called people who sign up for the military suckers and losers. Okay, isn't that way worse than what Mia Khalifa said? But if Trump says it, of course, all right wingers go, that's no big deal. Yeah, military suckers and losers, but you should sign up for the military. Okay, so now what's the reality? First of all, whether it's me or my kids when they grow up, if the country's under attack, what would I tell them? Okay, I would say, oh no, you gotta go and defend folks, because that's what progressives do. We fight for someone we don't know. And so if we were being attacked, I would definitely be in favor of everyone, all citizens, in however they can, defending the country, okay? But we don't ever get attacked. There's like random acts of terrorism, and some have been awful and spectacular in the damage that they have done. And in the last decade, they've been like 90% right-wing terrorism. I don't know who to counterattack. Do we counterattack Oklahoma? I don't know, right? Because back in the day, when random Muslims attacked us, we attacked random Muslim countries that didn't even attack us. So I don't know if we're supposed to attack Nebraska or Oklahoma or pick a random right-wing country. Oh, Philippines, Duterte's right wing. Let's go attack them, right? But so no, the reality is, in terms of wars, we've not been attacked at all since what, the British in 1812. So I get 9/11. They were also terrorists, just with bigger guns, called planes in that case. So what actually happens is we start offensive wars nonstop. We're in like a dozen countries now. Iraq had nothing to do with 9/11. We attacked them and killed 1 million people anyway. So under those circumstances, would I tell anyone, including my kids, to sign up for the military? Hell no. What, are you gonna go die for ExxonMobil? Are you nuts? So how can they fix that? Make it the United States military and make it the Department of Defense.
Yeah.
And then people will sign up. But if it's the Department of Offense for Chevron, hell to the no. No way, no way. You ought to have your head examined if you signed up for that. They're gonna send you to kill random people for random corporations. That's just a fact. Yeah. So now, in terms of sex, I have another apparently controversial thing to say. I don't think sex is any big deal at all. I think it's just another very normal bodily function. And the whole world has lost their mind over it. Like, oh, sex, it's so celestial. And you know, it involves like your soul, and you're sharing your soul. And God is like, God, do you approve? Is it? Can I go ahead? Right? No, sorry, no. The celestial beings don't approve. It's just a bodily function like playing basketball. I know a lot of people say, oh no, that's outrageous. Your soul, it involves your soul. No, it involves your penis and your other genitalia, your vagina. That's what it involves. Like your elbow and your knee. I'm saying super normal things that people will find incredibly outrageous. It's no big deal. So this whole thing of like, can you compare the military to sex workers? They should be so lucky. Sex workers give people joy. The military kills people. Jordan.
Yes, as some people know, the military recruiting is an issue I've talked and written about a lot for years. And this is just another year in this declining trend of their ability to effectively recruit. And I think it exemplifies how the American century is over. You don't have anything to sell people on. You don't have a national cause to rally people behind. And they've seen through, after this quagmire in the Middle East now for 2 decades, how farcical the whole premise of enlistment is. They try to sell people on the ability to find stability, steady income, the ability to buy a home, and a signing bonus that even now, when it's around $50,000 up front for enlisting, that's not enough. They're blaming it on negative sentiment spread by, in part, TikTokers, but it's kids who see through these lies. Military recruiters are going to lie to you because they have quotas. You're not going to necessarily get the job they promise you. You're not going to necessarily make friends last a lifetime, get free college, have this cushy life waiting for you when you get out. Because one, you're lucky if you get out alive. You're even luckier if you get out without a lifetime of PTSD. There is nothing that they can sell people on right now effectively who haven't already drank the American Kool-Aid. I got a break from Cenk. If you're being attacked, I don't necessarily think there's a moral obligation for people to stand up and fight back, because it's probably a byproduct of our foreign policy over the last several decades. It's a consequence of our actions worldwide. So I don't support that. I don't want any part in trying to defend this. The entire American myth, as it manifests globally through jingoism, is not something I would fight to defend. I don't think there's a moral obligation to do that. So I think the reason we're seeing the decline in recruitment and the surreptitious practices that they've employed over the past few years. Like, for instance, I saw the Army in 2020 lying to kids on Twitch, trying to get them to think they told them they were signing up for a contest where they can win an Xbox controller. And when they clicked the link, it was a recruiting form. When you're doing that, you're not selling someone on the idea, on the actual concept of enlistment. You're pulling a bait and switch to trick children. And they let kids as young as 13 fill out that form. International law around military recruiting is that you can't engage with people younger than 16. Most countries don't allow it at 18, but we allow it at 16. Yeah. And that doesn't stop them from talking to kids in cafeterias, which if you don't let military recruiters into your high school cafeteria, you risk losing federal funding.
Yep.
So what is this ultimately about? This is the government and the military trying to find kids who desperately need stability or income or any sort of economic advantage in life to get ahead, because it's so hard to do so organically. And they're finding these vulnerable people and tricking them into enlisting. And I'm glad more and more people are seeing through it, because you absolutely, under no circumstances whatsoever, should ever enlist in the military.
Yeah, but
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, really fast. And this is, of course, if it's not clear, because we don't, just in case, this is an indictment of the recruiters, the military leadership, the politicians who help to, create and sustain these myths, the, military Hollywood industrial movie complex that makes movies that are designed to make you want to join up, and the corporations who are inspiring many of the missions. Lots of regular people join the military because they don't have any desire to go kill people. They don't want to go, defend Chevron's oil profits and all that. A lot of them do genuinely buy that this is about service, this is about defending your country, or that this is about, the economy's terrible. How the hell am I supposed to buy a house? Well, they're telling me I'll get this money. People join up for all sorts of good reasons and are good people, but they are lied to. And we have to make clear what those lies are. And I think Jordan did a great job of doing that.
Yeah, so last thing is, don't get tricked by the recruiting bonus. Incoming service members make about $19,000 a year. And all that support the troops stuff is total marketing so they could funnel trillions of dollars to the richest defense contractors in the world. It doesn't actually go to the troops. And if you want a relative context here, now Mia Khalifa is a giant star. You're not gonna make this kind of money. But she makes $10,000 a day.
Whew.
So she would make the equivalent of a service member in the beginning, their full salary for the whole year, she'd make it in 2 days. I did the math, by the way. That's 3.65 million a year.
That's not bad.
Wow. It might be OnlyFans, but that's a lot of fans.
Yeah. So we couldn't make that much money. Could we make like half that much money?
I don't know. tyt.com/join.
Quarter?
You're not gonna get any of that. Okay, you're just gonna get this.
Or will you?
Truth in advertising. Okay.
Follow the Insta. Anyway.
All right, we gotta go. Everybody check out Deep Dive with Jordan Uhl. That's on twitch.tv/TYT. Okay, and you're gonna be on Game Busters later tonight, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Playing Stray.
Okay.
Can't wait.
So there you go.
No, it's not a multiplayer game. All right. We gotta go. I'm not Stray.
All right, you'll see Jordan later on twitch.tv/TYT. And of course, John's the host. Damage Report, we should check out every day. All right, guys, we have an amazing second hour coming up for you guys. We'll be right back. Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, and I'll see you soon.